three handouts. Three handouts. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our best poster practices session put on by the Faculty Org Research Committee and also some of our colleagues. You should have three handouts. One is PowerPoint presentation by Dr. Van Olson. Another is a compilation of tips put together by most of the panelists who are going to talk today, and then the third is evaluation. Okay? So we're going to just kind of informally each take turns and tell you our tips and best practices and just share information and welcome discussion and hope that it's just fruitful and engaging for everybody. Okay? So, would you like to start? Sure.
Mine's more generic. I don't have a poster to present to you, although I've helped develop many of them. Not these here, but other posters. So I'll walk you kind of through the PowerPoint just a little bit, just to kind of show you some of the things that might be helpful to you. Obviously, you can read the objectives yourself, but the purpose really of a poster is obviously to disperse your information. You can't disperse your information unless someone comes to your poster. So you have to get them to your poster first. So you get them to your poster by making it look attractive. And so a bunch of the tips that we're going to talk about today is how to entice people to come to your poster. Basically, the things that drive people nuts and drive them away, and the things that draw them to your poster. So once you can do that, then that's great. And then obviously you want to summarize your work and share it with them, especially if this is your work, you're not presenting it secondarily for someone else. So when you're planning your poster presentation, I actually overheard someone saying it over here, they take a ton of time to develop. And there's all those little nit and grit things, so plan accordingly. Make sure you have a lot of time to kind of take care of those little nit and grit things. Also know, of course, what your printing requirements are for your poster, for your presentation. So, thank you. So they don't always, or not all conferences require the same specs on their posters. So you have to know specifically what it is that they're looking for, and then figure out kind of where you want to, or what printing source you want to use so that you can plan accordingly. So basically working backward a little bit, thinking about how much time you need for the printing and the turnaround of the printer is really, or of the poster is really important. So skipping ahead a couple of slides, there's a couple of slides in here that are really nice resources. One of them is posterpresentations.com. Dr. Abbott, Cy Abbott, found this, and it's actually quite an interesting site. Neither one of us has actually used their source for printing per se, but to get ideas about what other people have, how other people have organized, or what the possibilities are, there's a ton of possibilities. And if you're one of those people who wants to print on cloth, which, by the way, how many of you knew that you can print on cloth? Yay! So cloth, I think, is going to be somewhat a way of the future here. I think that a lot of people are opting for cloth because it's so much easier to travel with cloth. You can fold it up. You don't have to have a big old ugly suit that everybody knows you're going to a conference and presenting with. And it obviously travels a lot nicer, but only certain printers can do the cloth, and posters, we can't. So let's be really clear about that. One that we have in the library, or through the library, is not capable of doing that. But posterpresentations.com is. So if cloth is the way you want to go, plan accordingly. And they say they promise a 24-hour turnaround in some cases. So if you're up against a timeline and you're really crunched here, they may be the best option for you.
Just while we're talking about that, if you're going to do it on cloth, please iron it before you put it up. Because when I was at my last conference, I walked by and there were all these wrinkles and folds, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not even going to read that one.
And you can probably, there's iron it. And that does seem like an interesting point, but I wonder if there's probably ways to do it, because I wonder if you have to steam it as opposed to ironing it, because it's print. Or not steam it and you have to dry it. It all depends.
It can't be that hard.
Yeah, so you just need to know what it is, but that's probably a really good piece of advice.
The other piece that I would say, if you're ordering from a company outside of SMU, the other thing to recognize is they've got to mail it to you. You can also just have it mailed directly to the site where you're going to be presenting.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And
that cuts down a ton.
Hassle.
Yeah, so let's say you don't want to go the cloth route, but you still want to do the paper poster. Then yeah, opt for a printer that's close to where you're going to be. There's Kinkos everywhere, so that's a nice way to kind of get around traveling with it, having it be ready before you get on the plane. Keep in mind though that if you're going to a really big conference, the other people may have that idea, So you may still need to get your information in ahead of them so that you get yours printed in time.
There is a site that I've used before that's really good, that I can't remember that URL right now. But they will print it to your specification and deliver it to the hotel where you're going to be staying.
That
So-
sounds like concierge service.
If you send,
Print is really good.
if you send that note to us, we're gonna.
Yeah, we'll put it
Yeah.
together. That's extra. So I wanted to make sure all of you guys knew that there is a template through SMU Merritt that's available, and we can make sure that that's distributed as well, because I know where it lives, at least in the nursing world, or in the school of nursing, but I don't know where it lives elsewhere. So we can make sure that's available to you as well. And I don't know, have any of you guys used that template or looked at it before?
No.
It's nice.
Yeah, but I had a little trouble, like, the stuff I wanted to eliminate, I had to figure out how to, like, eliminate if I didn't want it in that place, and I was picky, and like, if you look at the one on here, like, it's off kilter, like, I had to figure out how to move it over to get it.
No, and that's one of the things I was gonna say. As far as like tips and tricks and things like that, you do need to make sure that everything looks somewhat uniform. So if you're in one column, you don't want part of the column to be way extended out. You want the whole column to be uniform down. And that does make it a little difficult. But there are some tools in PowerPoint, which is usually where you're building
Yeah, I found it, like,
poster,
I found
to align, and especially in the newest version of PowerPoint, it's even nicer. You can align to the left, so the 2013 one. You can align all the way to the left, and it actually doesn't align it simply to the left, it actually just aligns it with each other on the left side. So there's some really nice features of the newer PowerPoint version that make things a little bit easier. And then color is another big thing. So a lot of times people want to make sure that your colors match and that your columns are all the same. And again, one of the nice features in the newer PowerPoint is that you can actually take that color, so when you go to select your color, it has this little pencil thing that you can drag it over any color on the screen, and it'll make that color, make it be that color. So it picks up on what color it is, and then it assigns it to whatever it is you were trying to assign that color to. So if you're really trying to color match, that's an ideal way to go, because we all know how fun that is when you're like, wait, is that 2 shades? I can't tell, you know? So that's no fun. And then I think the rest of this, I think, is pretty straightforward. So in flipping over to the poster tips and poster tips handout, just some things, you really want to make sure you get to your high points. So if you have a whole bunch of sub-information, that's great, but maybe talk about your sub-information. Get your high points on the poster. You can always create a handout that goes with your poster. And if you create a handout, it's nice to put your contact information directly on the handout. Otherwise, make sure your contact information is available to them somehow, either on your poster, but usually it's nicer if you give them at least your business card, because then they can contact you easily and not have to try to look up your information. Succinctly summarize, obviously, using bullet points can be really nice. Just be careful not to use too many bullet points. Make sure they're lined up, they stay uniform. Make sure your fonts stay fairly uniform when you have your titles of your actual poster and the titles of your subheadings. So if we're looking here, we want to make sure that all these fonts are the same exact size, same exact, they're all in the all caps if you're going to do all caps. Those kinds of things. Make sure they're consistent, because those are going to be the obvious things that are going to drive people away. Don't use a whole lot of background color or dark background color. If you're going to opt for a background color, it should be a lighter background color, and your words should be dark, your letters should be dark, as opposed to writing on a dark background with light color, mainly because you're going to waste a ton of ink. But also because I think some of those dark ones do drive people away. They don't come coming toward them just because the lettering is white and you think it stands out. It doesn't always translate. And then I would say some last minute things to do, especially when you're blowing up pictures and things like that, is actually try to print them in the real size that they're going to be, because you want to see did the JPEG actually look right. And use JPEG if you're going to use pictures, because you need to keep your document size down. And if you use GIFs or any of the other ones, the document size becomes immensely large. So you need to make sure you're using JPEGs. I know that a lot of people opt for other formats because they think that the clarity is better in those, but you can get a good JPEG too. The JPEG will still blow up just fine, or stand out just fine, as long as it's a good quality JPEG. Then in your charts and your tables, you want to have a significant amount of charts and tables per se, for the presentation. You don't want it to be all words. So you want to sort of break things up. If you're going to have chunks of words, so like let's say this whole thing was just all words, then using some bullet points in between to help break up the wording a little bit. And remember, they're going to be drawn right to the bullet point. So whatever you bullet point, make sure it's important and relevant. And then with your pictures, make sure, like I said, the fidelity of your pictures or your charts or your images come out right, but also use a significant amount of white space. And I don't mean white literally, but I mean, blank space. You want them to feel like they're not exhausted just walking up to your poster as they approach it. Make sure your title is big. So make sure your title letters are pretty large. You want to use something like, I think a 70 plus font size. You can differentiate your title and your written portion, your text portion. So you can use different text there, or a different font, excuse me. And that's fine, just make sure you're consistent within. So if you're going to change from a font from here to here, make sure all of the writing or all the text is the one font and all the title is one font. But it's okay to change a couple of times in the poster. Don't go too crazy, not tons of fonts, because again, you're just going to confuse the readers. I think I have it in here, but some common fonts, Arial, Helvetica. One thing to think about is that, especially if you're going to some of those more obscure ones with printers that you're not used to using, make sure you're using common fonts. If you start venturing out into some font that they don't have available when they go to print it, they're not going to be able to print it. You're going to have to reformat it before they can print it. So make sure you're using fonts that you know they're going to have. So things like Arial, Helvetica, Times New Roman, those are all really helpful. And I think that's kind of about it. Oh, and avoid clutter. Don't over-clutter. All right?
All right, I'm just going to make a few comments, then I'll pass it on to whatever panelist wants to go next. Thank you so much, Christina. I just want to say this is my poster up here, but look, this is one that I got printed out of Kinko's last year, and this is from our new Merritt printer. So isn't that kind of cool? You guys want to get that out? I printed out back here an old poster from when I was a postdoc, and a couple things I would just point out for research posters. One is that the titles and the bullet points should kind of speak of your message for a research poster so that the reader can follow pretty much on their own. You would be there to explain, but the poster should read itself. The title should say what you're going to, the points that you're making. One of the things of this old poster, which is a big no-no, notice I opted for Comic Sans font, which is kind of nice in an informal setting, but not really good for a poster. And actually, as I look at this, it really kind of looks really busy. So that's one thing to avoid is this font, and so that ties in with what Christina was saying. So that's really all I wanted to say, just to add to research posters, just bullet points, self-explanatory messages so that the poster reads itself. Anybody else who would like to go next?
I mean, you guys have kind of said everything.
I still think, Barb, would you want to talk about your special types of posters? Sure. Because different poster types have different design.
So I didn't bring a research poster. The two I brought are the ones that say smell and traumatic brain injury. And these were made for outreach events that I do. So different than a scientific poster, you're really working with a non-science audience or kids. And so the one on smell, if you look how it's arranged very differently. And there's a lot of artistic design goes into a poster that you're trying to educate kids. So we use the word smell and not olfactory because this was for 4th and 5th graders. But if you look in the upper corner where the skunk and the cinnamon buns are, that attracts your eye. But then there's the little circles and diamonds are supposed to be odor molecules going to the nose. And then you can follow the arrows around to tell the story of how sense of smell is translated to the brain. So it's a nice poster put together by OT students about sense of smell. So, yeah, don't really put them.
Just my.
And while you're doing that, I'd actually like to make the point too, it's really good use of the arrows. So if you don't have a clear pathway that they follow through, put arrows, put numbers, do something to identify which direction they're supposed to read it.
Right, and these posters aren't standalone, so people are presenting these. So we have hands-on activities that go with these. So we're not expecting these to be alone without anybody there to talk about them. The other poster also is more for junior high and up, and it's has a little more information to it about traumatic brain injury. But it's nice the way it's laid out because it does catch your eye with the visual and the title, and then it goes into nice categories about the facts about TBI. But obviously, I wanted to show the big difference between an elementary school type educational poster compared to something that was more meant for junior high and up. So a little bit different information. Just always think about your audience when you're making a poster that's more of an outreach and not these nice scientific posters. So they look very different.
Part, the bottom left, is that references or what's the, where is?
Yeah, so any picture that you take, off the internet, you should actually cite where it came from because that's somebody's original artwork or whatever. So wherever it was taken from, we always put a reference guide for that as
Keep that
well.
real small because people don't really care.
Right, I mean,
Unless they're lawyers or something.
yeah, when I was a grad student, I actually had a real nice picture, and the gentleman who actually made it actually came to my poster and he laughed, but I was mortified because he was like, I love that image. I go, I do too. Paxinos is great. And then I looked down at his badge and he was George Paxinos. So I was like, oh. Yeah, so I'm kind of, and he didn't care, but it's like if any image that you don't make yourself that's not your original artwork, you should cite your source. So yeah, that's what the small text is at the bottom, is their sources.
And another general comment to the panelists on references. Some of these, there aren't references on there. And, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? The ones we've been doing are clinical trial diabetic things, so like we pretty much are comparing things, so we put references on there, but.
I think it depends on your audience.
Yeah,
I really do think it depends on your
but
audience.
is it considered, it's just kind of selectively appropriate, like for certain things, you don't really have to put
I
reference
think in
much,
most
or?
scientific conferences, that it's expected.
Right,
So,
right.
but if you're presenting maybe to lay people, to the public or something
Right.
like that, maybe less required, less expected.
But I did a review article and poster, and there was no way that I could have included all the references,
Sure.
so I had a handout to go with
Sure.
it. I think otherwise it would have been really hard.
Right.
And that's a great way to tackle it,
I-
is to put it on.
Right, I think you gotta be careful, you gotta make sure.
Yeah.
Your
And a lot of times, research posters are, if they're your original work, you're gonna have minimal references,
Right.
maybe like the work that you build upon to get your thinking there.
So technically, when you do references, we've always put in the bottom right corner, is that cool?
Yeah, yeah, along with the acknowledgements too.
Real small.
Smaller.
Yeah, but the acknowledgements, who it is.
Acknowledgements, typically they go in the right lower hand corner below or above, usually below the references, but some people actually put them up top, up high, and if you can find a way to put them up high, that's fine. But one of the things that you should do if you're gonna do that is something like what this poster, exactly what this poster did. So you see how they did Benjamin Boyd, 1 and 2, so you can look down here to reference, instead of trying to say it after each sort, so kind of clump things together as best as possible to minimize clutter. So if you can do things like that, it helps. So, and then if you wanted to put your acknowledgements up high because you wanted to acknowledge a certain funder or something like that for your research, you can do that, that's okay. It just tends to go down in the right-hand corner for most people.
Cool, so, this is, I think you're right, we've all covered it. So just my own personal style stuff. So one, I agree, I can't emphasize about the pictures, have really quality pictures. And I remember working on a poster where we had x-rays, and so we had full-size x-rays, which were beautiful, but then it jacked up the file size. So then our problem became, how are we passing it around and making sure we're getting it to the printer and stuff like that. It took, I think, 3 hours to render for the printer. So good, but also be sensitive about that. But
Yeah.
again,
Especially with the black and white, I can imagine.
yeah, but they were beautiful, they really stand out. And I think just from my own journalism, newspaper days, I think, good about the white space, and I think Gail's over there with the sky blue background, I think illustrates where the talking points are and where the, kind of focuses your eye.
Yeah.
And then I think the sans serif font in the title is very readable, so that's the one, the serif is the hanging things at the end of it. Where I think the one to the left, so the one to the left, the font that's a serif font, and so that's very readable for the body, but hard to read for the title,
Exactly.
harder to read for the title, so.
And I think it's written out in the tips in hand, tips,
Yeah,
which
exactly,
one
yeah.
is better for which, so take a look at that.
But you notice a lot of books, they have the serif fonts in the body, and then they have the more flourishing than the titles, so, those are my 2 cents.
I think the one thing I would add, one thing I would add is not to use all caps. A lot of times people think that, but there's actually been some research that say that's more tiresome and hard on your eyes. I think like
And it doesn't
with-
emphasize.
No, with Christina's, I think that's a perfect way to do it, because those are
You
things
mean
that,
like the little headers?
right, the introduction to methods, I think it's perfectly fine to use it in very limited
Yes.
amounts like that.
Yeah.
But in the body of your paper, you're not supposed to ever do that.
Yeah, and definitely don't do it for emphasis, because it's not emphasis, it's just tiresome.
I just have one more thing on images. I noticed, oh, yeah. I just have one more thing on images. I see here that on the best poster practices, it recommends a PowerPoint of about 36 by 48 inches to 48 by 56. I just converted that to pixels, just so that, you know, if you get a sense, when you're looking for photos, like a 48 by 56 inch poster is roundabout like 5,600 pixels by 7,000 or something, right? So if you're searching for images, it's possible in Google to limit your image search to only like the largest size photos. And you can also limit them to photos that are licensed for reuse, so that if you happen to run into the person who created your photo.
That was okay.
Yeah, it's, you know, right in Google, there's a thing where you can say, I only want images that are licensed for
So
reuse.
filter?
Yeah,
Filter?
so yeah, filter it by the size of the image and by whether you can legally reproduce it. And you still have to give attribution, but that'll just give you kind of a sense of, if you know that you know, like you want to use like a corner of your whole thing, you probably want like 1,000 or 2,000 pixel image, pretty big. So that was all I just wanted to say.
That's great.
This is probably going to sound not so academic. I said that my comment will sound not so academic, but I did find an article on creating attractiveness for your poster by dressing in a way that enhances the colors of your poster. So wearing colors that go with your poster will attract your And somewhere I have an article about that.
Avoid leopard prints.
That sounds like a great
Tie
system
dye.
in a new outfit.
If it's about leopards, you could probably wear leopards.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Anybody want to
Spotty
share
logic.
their experiences or comments? That was, no, it was good.
It's your color
The
palette.
bigger the better
Please don't
too.
contrast with it, right?
Go big.
Yeah, I don't
Or
think
your
contrasting
co-presenters.
with your poster would be helpful.
Match your filters.
Yeah, but you don't wanna like
Are you
stand
guys
in front
required
of
to
the
use
light.
SMU colors? I know that there's a specific SMU color scheme.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in the
It's in-
template already, I believe, or they're shaded lighter, so but they're still the colors.
Here, do you want this so that everybody can hear at the San Francisco
Yes.
Peninsula Learning Center?
Thank you. So the question was, does the template have our colors basically in it? And I think that it does have our colors in it, they're just shaded lighter because they're the background colors and they should be lighter. So, and yeah, getting around using that template it's nice because it's got some nice instructions on the side that make it kind of self-explanatory, but arranging things, keeping things in mind, but that's a problem that you have every time you build a poster. Every time you build a poster, you put all those boxes on there, you've got to align everything. So are there other questions?
I thought a minor comment, I don't know if things have changed, but I have had translation issues when I've done research posters and I've had little beta symbols or strange symbols, so sometimes you can convert the file to a PDF. I don't know in terms of printing here, if that's something, but just something to be aware of, depending on what computer, like usually Mac
So
to
it maintains
PC
it,
is
you mean?
worse.
So it maintains your symbols? and
No,
everything?
yeah, so that will, otherwise you'll replace it with something really
Right.
odd. So, something to
We've all
think
seen
of
that
that.
weird
You
box.
need to catch that, because then otherwise you take this poster with this really weird symbol on it. I've had that, or you cut a little piece of paper, or draw it yourself. You do.
That's the
Maybe maybe it would be
the big
helpful
deal.
to repeat your comments for that. You didn't have the microphone.
No, I absolutely agree with what Christina just said about having word symbols. I mean, what I've had to do in the past is take a little piece of paper, draw my symbol in, and tape it to the poster over top of the symbol that didn't turn out well, so.
That should be the next poster session about all of our war stories about when we shut it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that too now, because I think it's, you can learn from your mistakes.
learning.
That's actually why I printed that old poster out, because like I said, that font was really bad. But some of the other mistakes were already hit upon, no caps. Let's see, really tiny text. The general rule is you should be able to read about 3 to 5 feet away.
Especially your title, because otherwise they're not gonna come see you.
Anybody else want to share anything? I hand it over to Marcus and Lana to talk about some of the printing.
Sure.
Okay.
Once we get paper, we can print. But right now, we do have the glossy paper for the library printer, which that's the one Christina has on the right. That's better than Kinko's at the moment. We're waiting for that. We have this paper is the one that Craig's been using for a long time, so now we actually have 2 spots on campus for printing. Sorry for all the feedback, and we'll see.
Put it on your shirt. It'll go away.
So we'll soon have printing back with the glossy paper. That's a temporary thing. The Office of Academic Affairs Visioning Project, those awesome murals that are on all the campuses, that's been great that we were able to facilitate that with the new printer, but that ended up taking the initial paper stock, which is why we're waiting on that. I do want to, I'm here as a member of the research committee and obviously the director of the library at AII, but really it's Juana who's doing all of this printing, so just.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And those of you who, who ever ordered an article from our interlibrary loan services, that's also on this. It's sort of like the full cycle of research here, from getting the article up to the poster. So thank you very much to Juana, and that's really all I had to say.
Oh,
Unless there's something else.
Can I ask you a question? Have you encountered any major hurdles or challenges that we could learn from?
People or?
Just in the process. No, we're not going to talk much. In the process of people printing their posters. Size-wise.
Time frame.
Time
How much
frame.
time do you need?
Yeah.
Without a word.
Let's see, issues that,
So just the question is hurdles that we've encountered.
not knowing what size to print the poster. Like somebody says, here's a poster, okay, I don't know what size you want it. It's good to let you know what size you want the poster. And we are going to start developing an online web form so that I can let you know
Specific.
your name. It's pretty much going to have your name. It's going to have a drop down of all the sizes that we have. And there'll be one if you want something that's custom that's not on there. That way I know who you are, what size poster you want, and I can go look in the Dropbox. Okay, there's a poster. Let me print it. Just so it makes the process a lot smoother and easier. So.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
Are you finding it easy to translate a file into various sizes, or are the templates typically built for one size? Or have you encountered that?
Yeah, kind of. Could you repeat the question, please?
Sorry. Can you say that again?
Yeah. My question was, is one file that's sent to you can be printed in various sizes, or is the template for one size? Have you encountered any formatting issues with size requests?
Okay, so the question was if I pretty much just changing the size of the poster, if you have any issues with that, right? Yeah. Okay. I haven't had any problems so far. I've been able to change it. So the big one you see there, I've done some smaller ones as well. One problem that I did have is that
printing a smaller poster on that size paper, so there was a lot of white space, so it needed to get cut off, because there wasn't too much white space. So that's been the main issue with that.
So is there somewhere where, because I haven't printed a poster on campus yet, so, well, just haven't, anyway. What's the best way to access, like, how we do that, all that sort of stuff? Is that written down somewhere that?
I can address that. I sent with the announcement of the poster printer, I sent an email out that has a link.
Could you use the microphone, please?
Yes.
It's really difficult to hear
Sure,
there.
sorry,
You're not
thank you
using
for
it.
reminding me. I was just gonna answer that real fast. We sent an announcement out, the research committee, with a link to a set of protocols that is listed, that tells you exactly where to put it, what file and all of that. And it's, if you just go to the main home site and do /research, you'll find that there's research committee and poster printing guidelines. And I can send it out again. I have another question for you guys. Have you been receiving only PowerPoint files or PDF file formats or what?
I've received both PowerPoint and PDF, and I've been able to print them both.
Well, this is a great group of people, so I think we should keep sharing whatever you got to share.
Well, no, just a question. This is a serious question. Do you guys laminate ever?
Not now, no.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
That's the short answer, but what we are doing is compiling a list of suggestions by our peers and people in the community of their experience with people who laminate. So you could take, ooh, sorry about that.
Tim,
You
we
could
could
take your
look
printed,
into that right now.
yeah, you could take your poster that was printed here and go get it laminated for at some one of these suggested venues that people have had good experience with that we're compiling. Yeah.
You need to go feel that poster though, because that's glossy and you don't need lamination. Feel that, that's
I'm just asking. I don't
But
know.
no, but I mean,
If you near the water, like seawater or something?
go touch that, that's not paper, that's swimming.
I have a response to the laminate one. Sarah and I were unaware that Craig had a printer. It was a top secret thing that I only found out because I only found out you had a printer because I saw somebody carrying a poster and attacked them, and I think it was you. They're like, where did you get that poster? Anyways, we just had ours laminated, and it's harder to roll up into a tube to carry. And then you realize, well, okay, we're only using this for 2 conferences, and we're ongoing research, and it costs more money, and
I think most people are also not the laminate anymore, for those very reasons you're talking about.
Just a little, what I've recently found out, the paper that we've been using at the library, which was that paper and those 2 right there, they are more of a kind of laminated, but they also have, like, they're a big Post-it, so you can actually peel it off and stick it to something.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
That's lots of days of pins.
Yeah. That is cool.
Yeah, that's great. Other questions or comments, experiences? I think the turnaround time is 3 days.
Which is short compared to others.
That's pretty good, yeah.
That's a quick turnaround time, so if you're going someplace else, plan accordingly.
And yes.
have we considered getting some nice travel tubes so that we can check out? You have some? Cool.
Yeah, they're the cardboard kind, so we have a bunch of them, so I usually print them and put them in there and then put them aside for when they're ready to pick up.
Oh, okay.
Any questions from our San Mateo campus or comments?
Wake up, Nancy.
I think she heard that.
Yeah.
On?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
No, we don't have any questions, other than are you gonna send out the PowerPoint again and the other thing you were talking about?
Yes, this is being...
I'm going there right afterwards and I'll bring it.
Yeah, we're posting those online and I'll send that out, and our colleague here is bringing them. And this is being video recorded as well as video conference. That will go on our archive of research rounds. Any other questions, feedback, comments? Well, then I guess if that's it, you're welcome. I encourage you to walk around and look at these posters, talk to any of the authors. Thank you for coming and all of your interaction. Very, very nice. Please make sure you take handouts and, if you don't mind, an evaluation and the cookies. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.